Now available for the first time in paperback. Stop Simping in the Workplace. Men, learn what you need to know in order to protect your job from workplace predators with Stop Simping in the Workplace. Available in paperback at online booksellers everywhere. On Friday, Chris Cuomo, the CNN host and brother of former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, was accused of sexual harassment by a former boss at ABC News. Now, this boss at ABC News alleges that in 2005, at a going away party for ABC's Primetime Live, that your Chris Cuomo walked towards her, gave her a strong bear hug, and then lowered his hand to firmly grab and squeeze the cheek of her buttock. And he allegedly told her he could do this because he was no longer her boss. So this incident is a really troubling one, and it is alleged that your Cuomo emailed her to apologize an hour later. But what's really troubling here about this whole story is how the mainstream media is covering this story, because the way they are covering this story clearly shows us that they have a racist double standard as related to these allegations of sexual harassment and sexual assault. Because back during the days of the allegations made against Bill Cosby, we would not be seeing such a friendly or amicable presentation of the details. No, if this were Bill Cosby, the mainstream media would be out here demonizing Mr. Cosby, and they would be demanding that your Bill Cosby be punished in the court of public opinion. Now, I find it interesting that in the aftermath of these allegations against your Chris Cuomo, we don't see any members of the Me Too movement like your Tanara Burke or your Rose McGowan or your Asia Argento coming out to protest as related to these kind of allegations. And we don't see any members of that Time's Up movement coming out talking about how we need to stop sexual harassment and sexual assault. And what's really interesting here is that we don't see anybody going out to try to protest your Chris Cuomo in the same way they protested Bill Cosby. I mean, from what I've been hearing in the news, you have people trying to say, oh, this was just 15 years ago and we need to forget about it. But these same people who want to forget about Chris Cuomo's alleged sexual harassment, they were the ones who wanted to remember every allegation made against Bill Cosby in vivid detail. And as they were remembering every vivid detail about the alleged sexual crimes that were alleged that Bill Cosby committed, they wanted to go out here and punish your Bill Cosby by doing things like taking the Cosby Show out of syndication, ending the printing of the Cosby Show DVDs, and they wanted to do things like take away many of the honorary degrees from Dr. Cosby. And that clearly shows me that there's a clear double standard as related to many of these people on the left who are the ones who oftentimes go out here and talk about this whole stopping sexual harassment and sexual assault. Well, here is a man who is going out here and is confirmed to have participated in an act of sexual harassment, and as I see it, a case of sexual assault. But what we have here is people looking to give this white male a pass, and I find it interesting that when it comes down to many on the left, they will make every effort to give the white males who have a certain political affiliation and certain political views a pass for their sexual indiscretions. But these are the same people who want to make black men the poster child of sexual predation. And what is really troubling is that they will give your Chris Cuomo a pass because of his political beliefs and his viewpoints, and because he's a white male with the viewpoints
they like, but you're Mr. Cosby. They want to demonize a blind 81-year-old black man as a black brute, and they want to punish him for alleged incidents that took place almost 40 to 50 years ago. And they want to go out here and say that these allegations were true, even though all of the details in many of these stories practically make no logical sense when you understand the concept of history. Because anyone who understood the concept of history as related to these allegations made against Bill Cosby understood that in the late 1960s, early 1970s, we were still dealing with Jim Crow all across this country. And if a black man as much as looked at the white woman the wrong way, if this white woman went into any police station and made that allegation against that black man, a police officer would be going to arrest him. And a lot of those females want to sit there and say, oh, Bill Cosby had all of this influence. No, he did not have the influence that many Hollywood executives had to greenlight a project or destroy somebody's career, like in the case that people allege as related to Les Moonves. No, Bill Cosby never had that kind of influence. So a lot of people want to sit there and say this about Bill Cosby, not looking at the context of history. Again, they want to sit there and say, oh, Bill Cosby did all these things. But when you look at the context of history and see the timeline, there's no way he could have even been able to rise as far as he did if this was the case, because any white female could go into any police station, make a claim, and that would have been the end of Bill Cosby, and it would have been all over the news, and he practically would have gotten life in prison for that kind of crime back then. But what's really troubling is that people will say, oh, we need to punish Bill Cosby for crimes he were alleged to have committed 15 years ago and were tried not in a court of law but in a court of public opinion. But here we have a case with Chris Cuomo where he has alleged to have participated in an act of sexual harassment, written an email to confirm and apologize for his inappropriate behavior. But those same whites who make those type of allegations, they, against Bill Cosby, will give Chris Cuomo a pass and say, oh, that was 15 years ago, and he should still be able to keep a job. Now, I find what's happening here is similar to what I talk about in a chapter of my book, Stop Simping in the Workplace. And in that chapter, what we see here happening with Chris Cuomo is called what I call the triple standard. Now, the triple standard is something that many workplace simp managers do in order so that they can get away with things on the job. Now, the triple standard is where you have three different sets of rules. One for yourself, where you don't hold yourself accountable if things go wrong. One that you go out here and give women a pass who you like. And a third set of standards where you have all of these hard rules on the people you don't like, and you use these rules to punish those you don't like, but give passes to those who you do like, and then give yourself a pass for your inappropriate behavior. And what happens as a result of the triple standard is that your workplace simps create an extremely chaotic workplace, and that's probably what's happening at your CNN and your ABC News, is that they're having a chaotic workplace. But what's really troubling here is that we're seeing that there's a true triple standard as related to the American workplace, and it seems like, again, certain people can get away with alleged sexual harassment and alleged sexual assault, but others can't get away with it, and it seems like is a racial line divided between those groups. It seems like those who are white males on the left, they seem to be given a pass by your women in the workplace. Meanwhile, those same women in the workplace and all throughout the country who are a part of groups like the Me Too movement, the Time's Up movement, and the Silence Breakers, they seem to want to make black males the poster boy for sexual predation. And when you look at that whole picture as related to their narrative, it really shows how racist that these women are as related to the whole sexual harassment argument. And it seems like they're not about stopping sexual harassment or stopping sexual assault, because they'll give a pass to certain guys to participate in this behavior and allow them to keep their jobs. However, when there's a black man who is around, they want to demonize him and make him the ultimate image of a sexual predator. And that's a really, again, shows me how racist your groups like Me Too, Time's Up, the Silence Breakers are, because here we have a guy who clearly who again went out here, wrote a note, and sent an email to this woman back in 2005. And here in 2021, 16 years later, he is still on the job. Meanwhile, if a black man were to have made a said statement like this or touched a woman like this, he would practically be locked up for sexual assault. And even if he got out of jail, he would never be able to ever work in any field again. And again, that is the clear racial double standard I'm seeing as related to these cases. And it just shows me how full of it many of these people who in the Me Too movement are, because their silence shows how racist many of those are as related to sexual harassment and sexual assault, and how they really are not about stopping sexual harassment and sexual assault, because here we have a man who participated in what I say is a clear case of sexual harassment and possibly a case of sexual assault, but he does this to a boss, a supervisor, somebody in a position of authority, and she gives it a complete pass. But in the case of Bill Cosby, we're supposed to believe he's so influential and so terrifying that they have to literally try to destroy him. And I look at that and I just say, here's a guy who is under this woman and she's giving him a pass, but Bill Cosby, who practically is just a regular guy who worked in entertainment, they want to destroy him, crucify him, demonize him, and make him the ultimate monster. But they don't do this to certain white males who have certain political beliefs. And that really just shows me how full of it many of these Me Too people are. And this whole case shows me that there's a clear case of racism when it comes down to sexual harassment. And the whole sexual harassment, sexual assault narrative is one that is colored as related to black and white. Now, if you want to see me make more videos like this, because this video will not be monetized, I'm urging you to please donate to my Patreon, my PayPal, or my Cash App by clicking the link in the description box. And if you want to learn more about men's issues, you can pick up some of my men's issues books like Stop Simping in the Workplace, Stop Simping in Cyberspace, and Stop Simping, Why Men Don't Need Finance to Get Romance, and The Man Crisis. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.
Now available for pre-order on Kindle. Stop Simping in Cyberspace. Learn how to avoid predatory females in their virtual con games with Stop Simping in Cyberspace. Pre-order your copy of Stop Simping in Cyberspace on Kindle today.